In an Amish farmhouse outside Millersburg, Ohio, there is a cast iron skillet that has been cooking 3 meals a day since 1923. No scratches, no rust, no flaking coating, just a surface so smooth and so perfectly seasoned that eggs slide off it the way they slide off a brand new non-stick pan. Except this pan is 100 years old and costs $2 to maintain. Here are 20 Amish secrets that will transform your cast iron and make every non-stick pan you own feel like a waste of money. Number 20. Understand what seasoning actually is. Before anything else on this list makes sense, let's get clear on what cast iron seasoning actually is, because most people have a vague idea that it involves oil and heat and not much else beyond that. Seasoning is not a coating applied to the surface of the iron. It is a chemically bonded layer of polymerized oil that forms when certain fats are heated past their smoke point on the iron surface, breaking down at the molecular level and bonding to the microscopic pores of the iron itself. The result is a layer of carbon-based polymer that is hard, smooth, slick, and chemically bonded to the pan in a way that no commercial non-stick coating ever is. Seasoning is the foundation, but the next technique is the specific oil choice that determines whether your seasoning layer builds correctly or stays sticky, gummy, and uneven for months. Number 19. Use the right oil and nothing else. Not all oils polymerize equally, and using the wrong oil is the single most common reason home cooks end up with a sticky, gummy cast iron surface that performs worse after seasoning than before. The Amish kitchen oil of choice for cast iron seasoning is flaxseed oil, and there is a specific scientific reason for this preference. Flaxseed oil has the highest concentration of polyunsaturated fatty acids of any commonly available cooking oil, and polyunsaturated fats polymerize more completely and at lower temperatures than monounsaturated or saturated fats. This means a thin coat of flaxseed oil baked onto a cast iron surface produces a harder, more durable, more tightly bonded polymer layer than the same process performed with olive oil, vegetable oil, or coconut oil. The right oil applied thinly produces the right polymer layer, but the next technique is the oven process that turns that thin oil coat into a genuine chemical bond with the iron. Before we go further, if you have not subscribed yet, now is the moment. This channel exists to surface exactly this kind of knowledge, things that were never obvious, just never explained. Subscribing means you will not miss what is coming next in this series. Number 18. The oven. Seasoning process done correctly. Here is the exact process that an Amish farmhouse kitchen uses to season or re-season cast iron, and every detail matters more than it might seem. Preheat your oven to 500 degrees Fahrenheit, or as close to it as your oven will go. Apply a thin coat of flaxseed oil to every surface of the pan, inside, outside, handle, and all using a cloth or paper towel. Then take a clean dry cloth and wipe off almost all of what you just put on. The pan should look almost dry rather than visibly oily. Place the pan upside down on the center rack of the oven with a sheet of foil on the rack below to catch any drips. Bake for 1 hour, then turn the oven off and let the pan cool completely inside the closed oven before removing it. This single session builds one thin layer of seasoning. Repeat the entire process 6 times in succession before the pan's first use, and you will have a seasoning foundation that rivals a 100-year-old skillet. The oven process builds the base layer, and the next technique maintains that layer through everyday cooking in a way that makes the seasoning stronger every single time the pan is used. Number 17. Cook fat. First. Every single time. One of the most consistent habits in an Amish cast iron kitchen is the practice of always starting every cooking session with fat in the pan before any other ingredient touches the surface. Not because the food needs it, because the pan does. Heating fat in the pan before adding food accomplishes 2 things simultaneously. It fills any microscopic gaps in the existing seasoning layer with a thin film of fat that prevents moisture from reaching the iron beneath, which prevents rust. And it adds a microscopic additional contribution to the polymer layer with every single use, meaning the seasoning literally gets stronger and smoother every time you cook with fat rather than starting dry. Fat first builds seasoning with every use, but the next technique keeps that seasoning intact through the cleaning process, which is where most cast iron surfaces are quietly destroyed. Number 16. the hot water, cleaning method. Let's talk about cleaning cast iron, because this is where most people go wrong and where most cast iron surfaces get permanently damaged by well-intentioned maintenance. The Amish method for cleaning cast iron after cooking is straightforward. While the pan is still warm but not burning hot, add a small amount of hot water and use a stiff brush or a chainmail scrubber to remove food residue with minimal scrubbing effort. The residual heat from the pan combined with the hot water lifts food particles from the seasoning surface without attacking the polymer layer itself. Rinse with hot water, dry immediately and completely on a burner set to low heat, and apply a fingertip-thin coat of oil to the surface before putting it away. Never let a cast iron pan soak in water. Never put it in a dishwasher. Both of these actions expose the iron to sustained water contact that initiates rust beneath the seasoning layer and eventually lifts it from the iron's surface. The cleaning process should take less than 60 seconds and leave the pan dry and lightly oiled before storage. Hot water cleaning protects the seasoning during maintenance, and the next technique uses something that costs about $2 and performs better than any cast iron cleaning product sold at any price. Number 15. The $2 coarse salt scrub. Here is the $2 trick referenced in the title, and it is embarrassingly simple once you see it. For cast iron that has developed stubborn food residue that a brush and hot water cannot remove, an Amish farmhouse kitchen uses coarse kosher salt as an abrasive scrubber. A tablespoon of coarse salt poured into the warm, dry pan and scrubbed with a folded paper towel or a cloth in circular motions lifts stuck food from the seasoning surface without scratching the polymer layer or introducing water that could initiate rust. Salt is an abrasive that is harder than food residue, but softer than the polymerized oil layer of a properly seasoned pan. This means it removes what you want, removed the stuck food, without removing what you want to keep, the seasoning. Rinse with minimal hot water, dry immediately on a burner, apply the fingertip-thin oil coat, and put it away. The entire process costs the price of a box of kosher salt that lasts for months of cleanings. The salt scrub removes stuck food without touching the seasoning, but the next technique rescues a cast iron pan that has already gone past the point where cleaning is enough. Number 14. Stripping and starting. Over the right way. If you have inherited a cast iron pan with layers of gummy, uneven, flaking seasoning built up incorrectly over years of use, or if your current pan has developed rust spots that cleaning cannot address, the correct response is a complete strip and restart, rather than continued seasoning on top of a compromised base. The Amish method for stripping cast iron is to place it in a self-cleaning oven cycle, if your oven has one, which runs at temperatures high enough to burn off every trace of existing seasoning, leaving bare iron. Alternatively, a lye-based oven cleaner, sealed around the pan in a plastic bag for 24 hours, dissolves old seasoning and rust simultaneously. After either method, the pan emerges as bare iron, ready for the 6-layer flaxseed oil seasoning process described in number 18. A clean strip creates the foundation for correct seasoning. The next technique addresses the specific challenge that defeats more cast iron beginners than any other: cooking eggs without disaster. Number 13. The egg test and what it actually measures. In Amish cast iron culture, the ability to cook a fried egg in a cast iron skillet with no sticking and no breaking of the yolk is considered the definitive test of whether a pan seasoning is properly developed. Not scrambled eggs, not pancakes, but a fried egg, which is the most demanding combination of protein, fat, and delicate structure that a cooking surface can be asked to handle. The reason eggs are the test is that egg proteins bond to iron surfaces at temperatures between 160 and 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is below the temperature at which a properly seasoned cast iron surface reaches during preheating. A pan that is preheated correctly before the egg goes in never reaches the protein bonding temperature at the moment of egg contact, because the egg immediately begins cooking at a higher temperature than the bonding threshold. The egg test reveals both seasoning quality and preheating discipline. But guess what? The next technique is the specific preheat method that makes eggs and every other food release correctly from cast iron every single time. Number 12. The correct preheat, which almost nobody does right. Most home cooks put cast iron on high heat to preheat it quickly, add oil when the pan starts smoking, and immediately add food. Every step in this sequence is wrong, and the result is food that sticks, burns on the outside before cooking through, and leaves residue on the seasoning surface that degrades it over time. The Amish preheat method starts on medium-low heat for 3 to 4 minutes before cooking begins, allowing the pan to heat gradually and evenly through its entire thickness rather than having a screaming hot surface above a cold iron mass. Cast iron holds temperature extremely well, but distributes it slowly, which means a pan placed on high heat develops hot spots at the center while the edges stay cool, producing uneven cooking and uneven thermal stress on the seasoning. After 3 to 4 minutes on medium-low, test the temperature by holding your hand 2 inches above the surface for 2 seconds. You should feel significant heat radiating upward, but be able to hold your hand there for the full 2 seconds. At this point, add your fat, allow it to shimmer but not smoke, and then add your food. This preheat sequence produces even heat distribution and the correct surface temperature for food release without burning. The correct preheat produces even heat and proper food release. The next technique uses a specific temperature management approach during cooking that protects the seasoning while producing better food. Number 11. Cooking on medium, not high. Here is something that surprises most people who grew up cooking on non-stick pans. Cast iron almost never needs high heat for cooking, and using high heat on cast iron damages the food, stresses the seasoning, and produces worse results than medium heat almost every time. Cast iron retains heat so efficiently that medium heat on a properly preheated skillet reaches and maintains surface temperatures comparable to high heat on thinner pans. The retained heat does not dissipate when cold food is added the way it does in a thin stainless pan, so the temperature recovery after adding ingredients is faster and more consistent. An Amish farmhouse cook never cranks the heat. She starts medium-low to preheat, moves to medium to cook, and only uses high heat for tasks like boiling a large volume of water or an initial sear that will immediately be reduced. This approach protects the seasoning from thermal stress, prevents the pan surface from exceeding the temperature range at which seasoning remains stable, and produces food that is evenly cooked rather than scorched outside and raw inside. Medium heat protects seasoning and improves cooking simultaneously. The next technique maintains the pan between cooking sessions in a way that keeps the seasoning developing even when the pan is not being used. Number 10. Storing cast iron correctly between uses. If you are still with me and your cast iron game is leveling up with every technique on this list, please hit the like button right now. It genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to see it. Cast iron stored incorrectly between uses can develop rust, absorb odors, or have its seasoning layer compromised by humidity, stacking pressure from other pans or contact with moisture from nearby sources. The Amish storage method addresses all of these simultaneously. After cleaning and drying on a burner, apply a fingertip-thin coat of flaxseed or vegetable oil to the cooking surface and the exterior of the pan. Store the pan in a dry location with the cooking surface facing up, never face down on a shelf that may have moisture. If pans must be stacked, place a folded paper towel between the cooking surfaces to prevent the seasoning layers from pressing against each other and developing soft spots. Correct storage prevents rust and keeps the seasoning developing. The next technique reveals an ingredient that an Amish cook adds to the pan during cooking that simultaneously feeds the food and builds the seasoning. Number 9. Cooking bacon regularly and deliberately. If you want to build a beautiful seasoning layer quickly and consistently with almost no effort at all, cook bacon in your cast iron skillet once a week. This is not a dietary recommendation. It is a seasoning strategy. Bacon fat is an excellent seasoning oil because it contains a mix of saturated and unsaturated fats that polymerize reasonably well at cooking temperatures and coat the pan surface evenly as the fat renders from the meat. More importantly, bacon cooking sessions generate a significant volume of fat that coats the entire pan surface, including the sides and the areas around the edge that other cooking methods leave dry and undertreated. An Amish farmhouse skillet that cooks bacon twice a week builds seasoning significantly faster than one used only for eggs or vegetables. because the fat volume and the duration of fat contact with the surface are both higher. This is why the best seasoned cast iron in most traditional farm kitchens tends to be the skillet used for morning bacon, not the one reserved for special occasion cooking. Regular bacon cooking builds seasoning faster than almost any other method. The next technique uses the period immediately after cooking to add a maintenance step that most people skip and most cast iron guides never mention. Number 8. The post-cook wipe while still hot. Immediately after serving food from a cast iron skillet, and while the pan is still hot from cooking, use a folded cloth or a paper towel to wipe the cooking surface in circular motions, distributing the remaining cooking fat evenly across the entire surface before any food residue has a chance to cool and bond to the seasoning. This post-cook wipe serves two purposes. It removes food particles that would otherwise stick and carbonize during the next use, and it distributes a thin layer of cooking fat across the surface that begins polymerizing from the pan's residual heat as it cools. Every post-cook wipe is, in effect, a mini seasoning session that adds a microscopic additional contribution to the polymer layer without requiring any additional time, oil, or oven use. The Amish farmhouse skillet gets this wipe after every single use, 3 times a day, every day. Over 100 years, that adds up to something extraordinary. Over the several years you own your skillet, it adds up to something genuinely impressive. The post-cook wipe turns every meal into a seasoning session, and the next technique addresses the one cooking task that most people warn against doing in cast iron, but that an Amish farmhouse kitchen does without a second thought. Number 7. Cooking acidic foods correctly without damaging the seasoning. You have probably heard that cooking tomatoes, citrus, or vinegar-based dishes in cast iron damages the seasoning and should be avoided. This advice is partially true and largely overstated, and understanding the nuance makes cast iron genuinely more useful. Acidic foods do affect cast iron seasoning, but only when cooked for extended periods in a pan whose seasoning is not yet fully developed. A well-seasoned pan with multiple solid layers of polymerized oil can handle a tomato sauce simmered for 30 minutes without any meaningful damage to the seasoning layer. A poorly seasoned pan with thin, incomplete polymer coverage will show damage from even a brief acidic cooking session. The Amish farmhouse pan cooks tomato-based dishes regularly, including tomato preserves, vinegar-braised meats, and fruit cobblers with acidic fruit. It does so without damage because the seasoning is thick, complete, and deeply polymerized rather than thin and newly applied. If your pan is new, avoid acidic dishes for the first 3 months while you build a solid seasoning base. After that, cook whatever you like. A fully seasoned pan handles acidic food without damage. And the next technique is the specific approach to cooking meat in cast iron that produces results no non-stick pan can come close to matching. Number 6. The cast iron steak. Sear that changes everything. Cast iron produces a better steak sear than any other cookware available at any price point, and understanding why helps you use it correctly for this specific application. The mass of cast iron retains its temperature when a cold steak is placed on its surface in a way that no thin stainless or aluminum pan can match. In a thin pan, a cold steak causes an immediate temperature drop at the pan surface, producing steam and gray, steamed meat rather than a proper Maillard crust. In cast iron at the correct preheat temperature, the thermal mass of the iron maintains surface temperature when the steak hits, producing an immediate, aggressive sear that develops the brown crust in 90 seconds per side. The Amish farmhouse cast iron produces steaks, chops, and roasts with seared surfaces that lock in moisture and produce flavor compounds that non-stick cookware physically cannot generate, because non-stick surfaces cannot safely reach or maintain the temperatures required for the Maillard reaction without destroying the coating. Cast iron searing is beyond the capability of any non-stick surface, and the next technique ensures the pan performs this way consistently by addressing what happens to the seasoning after a high-heat sear session. Number 5. Re-oiling. After every high-heat session. Any cooking session that involves very high heat, a steak sear, a long high-heat sauté, or anything that gets the pan surface smoking, consumes a small amount of the seasoning layer through accelerated polymerization and partial combustion. This is normal and expected, and it is why high heat cooking sessions require a specific maintenance step that lower heat cooking does not. After every high heat cooking session, once the pan has cooled to warm but not hot, apply a fresh fingertip-thin coat of flaxseed or vegetable oil to the cooking surface and either allow it to dry at room temperature or place the pan in a 200-degree oven for 30 minutes. This restores the surface contribution that the high heat session consumed and ensures the seasoning layer goes into the next use as strong as it came out of the last one. An Amish farmhouse kitchen performs this re-oil step automatically after high heat cooking, the same way it performs the post-cook wipe after every regular use. It is not an additional task. It is simply part of what cooking with cast iron means. Re-oiling after high heat maintains the seasoning layer consistently, but the next technique uses a natural material that an Amish farmhouse always has available to condition the exterior of the pan in a way that most cast iron guides completely ignore. Number 4. Conditioning the exterior with beeswax. Most cast iron guides focus entirely on the cooking surface and treat the exterior of the pan as an afterthought. The Amish farmhouse approach treats the entire pan as a unit, including the exterior, the bottom, the sides, and the handle, because rust can initiate anywhere on bare or under-conditioned iron and spread to the cooking surface if left unaddressed. A thin application of raw beeswax rubbed onto the exterior of a clean, dry cast iron pan and then buffed to a thin, even finish creates a moisture barrier on the exterior surface that prevents rust initiation from ambient humidity, from contact with wet dishcloths, and from condensation during storage in humid conditions. The beeswax does not affect the cooking surface and does not need to be reapplied frequently. Typically 2 to 3 times per year is sufficient. It costs almost nothing, takes 2 minutes to apply, and prevents the exterior surface rust that eventually compromises the structural integrity of the pan at the rim and handle junction, the 2 points most vulnerable to moisture accumulation. Beeswax protects the exterior that most guides never mention, and the next technique addresses the single most damaging mistake that cast iron owners make, usually with the best possible intentions. Number 3. Never using soap, and here is the science behind. Why dish soap contains surfactant compounds designed to break down and remove fats from surfaces. The polymerized oil layer that constitutes cast iron seasoning is, chemically, a fat-based polymer. Washing cast iron with dish soap therefore attacks the seasoning layer directly, stripping the surface oils that contribute to its non-stick properties and leaving the iron surface more exposed to moisture and oxidation than before the washing. This is why Amish farmhouse cast iron is never washed with soap. The cleaning method is always hot water and a brush or salt scrub, which removes food without attacking the polymer layer. The distinction between food residue, which is stuck to the surface of the seasoning, and the seasoning itself, which is chemically bonded to the iron, is the key to understanding why these cleaning methods remove one without affecting the other. If you have been washing your cast iron with dish soap, stop today. The difference in your pan's cooking performance after 2 weeks of soap-free cleaning will be noticeable, because the seasoning layer will begin rebuilding from each cooking session rather than being partially stripped each time the pan is washed. Soap-free cleaning lets the seasoning accumulate rather than being stripped away. And the next technique is the generational perspective that explains why a 100-year-old Amish cast iron skillet is better than a brand new one. Number 2, understanding why. Old cast iron outperforms. New here is a truth that the cast iron cookware industry would rather you did not think too hard about. A 100-year-old Amish skillet outperforms a brand new cast iron pan of identical design in almost every cooking parameter, and the reason is not the quality of the iron itself. Older cast iron, particularly pieces manufactured before the 1950s, was polished to a smoother surface finish than most modern cast iron, which is typically left with a rougher, pebbly texture from the sand casting process. The smoother the iron surface, the thinner and more even the seasoning layer that develops over it, and the better the resulting cooking performance. But even setting aside the surface finish difference, 100 years of correct seasoning technique builds a polymer layer of depth and consistency that no new pan can replicate without 100 years of cooking. The good news is that the techniques on this list build seasoning faster than any other method, And even a rough surface modern cast iron pan develops a genuinely impressive cooking surface within 1 to 2 years of consistent correct treatment. You are not starting with a disadvantage. You are starting a process that rewards patience and consistency with compounding returns. Old cast iron demonstrates what consistent correct technique builds over time. But the final technique is the organizing principle that makes every other technique on this list actually work together as a complete system. Number 1. Treating cast iron as a living surface, not a static tool. The deepest insight behind every technique on this list is a shift in how you think about cast iron, from a static cooking tool that requires occasional maintenance to a living surface that is always either getting better or getting worse depending on how it is treated. Every cooking session either builds the seasoning layer or degrades it. Every cleaning session either protects the polymer or strips it. Every storage decision either allows rust to initiate or prevents it. There is no neutral. The pan is always moving in one direction or the other. And the techniques on this list are the specific practices that keep it moving in the right direction consistently. The Amish farmhouse skillet that has been cooking since 1923 is not remarkable because it was built better than your pan. It is remarkable because someone has been making the right small decisions about it every single day for 100 years. Every wiped surface after cooking, every correct preheat, every salt scrub instead of a soap wash, every fingertip-thin oil coat before storage, added a fraction of a percent to the pan's total performance. 100 years of fractions of a percent is the black, mirror-smooth, egg-releasing surface that makes every non-stick pan in the same kitchen feel disposable by comparison. Your pan can get there too. Not in 100 years, in a few consistent patient years of applying these 20 techniques every time you cook. The surface compounds. The results follow. Tell me in the comments below which of these 20 techniques you are implementing first, and whether you are working with a new pan or one you have inherited. The next video is already on your screen on the left. Click it now, and I will meet you there.